Hey, Prime Lending Team, welcome to a Mortgage Coach educational event. My name is Dave Savage, CEO of Mortgage Coach, and I am going to interview one of your own top producers. As most of you know, every Tuesday I interview someone amazing. Often it's an author, it's a speaker. We're going to reference a call I did with Todd Duncan in a minute here. And I've got Paul on the list for later this month to do an interview with Paul. So, Paul, welcome to the call, my friend.
Thanks, Dave.
Good. So Paul, Prime Lending is a big organization. Many of the mortgage professionals, especially on the East Coast, Mid-Atlantic region, already know you. But if you could just tell us a little bit about your mortgage practice, a little bit about yourself, and then let's get into this training.
I'm based in Dayton, Ohio. Been doing mortgages for about 7 years. Started out as a branch banker and kind of organically grew into the mortgage side of the field. I now run a team of 3. We do about $32 million, 200 units a year, plus or minus. All in all, great growth at 29, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, hey, it's great to have a millennial crushing it in the business. That's great volume for anyone. So congrats on your success. One thing I've noticed in my interviews, the best loan officers, they're not only super effective at being a trusted advisor, they're effective at managing a team. So congratulations on doing both. So what we want to do is we want to show and really highlight how you're using Mortgage Coach. So we're going to start with call it the borrower and the realtor experience, and then we're going to close it out with workflow and how do you create these total cost analysis experiences. So if you don't mind, you've sent me a couple photos. Walk me through the photo we're looking at and just describe what you do while you're in your office.
So do a ton of different things, do this a ton of different ways, but this particular experience was a younger guy who just didn't feel comfortable over the phone with the experience. He wanted to come in and sit down and actually meet face to face. So we did that, got his pre-qualification set up and out of the way, and now what we're doing is going through a couple of options on homes he brought in that he was really interested in, and just showing him the impact monthly of that total cost payment, taxes, insurance, everything built in, what these 2 homes might look like on a real budget. So we're really giving him a lot of information before he goes out to write an offer. We're being proactive and not reactive. And I think that's how you make this process a lot smoother, especially for a first-timer.
Love it. And what percentage of your borrowers come into your office versus borrowers where you send them the link and they're out and about? Just give us a feel for that.
I'm probably a little bit unusual. I probably meet about 60% of my clients in the office.
Okay, so 50% come
now,
in?
that's not saying we don't follow up with those presentations remotely, but I meet about 50% of them up front at one point or another.
Okay, and then the 50% that you don't, just describe it. You send them the link. Now they have access to the report. What percentage do you think are looking at the report on a mobile device versus another desktop?
I would say most, probably somewhere close to 70% of people are looking at things, maybe even 80% are looking at them on a mobile device, either a phone or a tablet of some kind. And we're going through that live presentation. And I know that they're sitting there looking at it while I'm talking to them. Not only do we get the alert that they're viewing the presentation, but I'm also getting the comments when I highlight stuff like, whoa, how'd you change my screen? Because I'm able to take that and control them on more in-depth pieces of that presentation right in front of them on that tablet. Lets me drive the conversation back to where I want it to be, not let them wonder so much.
Beautiful. So folks, that is the Mortgage Coach live feature. You can drive that feature from your desktop, and you can also drive that feature from your own mobile device. So if you don't know how to do it, it's called the live Mortgage Coach Live, Edge Live. Do a Google search or ask about it at your next training event. So let's keep going.
I actually used that mobile Coach Edge live on my cell phone from a mountain bike trail 20 miles in Greensboro this past weekend to talk somebody through something on Saturday from my cell phone in the middle of the trail. So I couldn't live without that. I love that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And then I know also, in addition to driving your borrower experience, you're using it when you speak with realtors. And I know this, well, actually, why don't you tell us what this photo is, and then kind of just describe some of the different ways that you're using Mortgage Coach Total Cost Analysis with your realtor partners.
Yeah, we use it a couple different ways with realtors. This particular experience here, I'm part of a kind of a marketing agreement with a large real estate company here in the Dayton market, They do some new agent trainings, which they invite us into to teach a mortgage class. Teach that class once a month, and I always bring out Edge to talk about loan types, because one of the biggest things that new agents don't know is what different types of loans are available. You mean I don't have to put 20% down on a conventional loan? So Mortgage Coach lets me throw options up there, and I'll typically bring 2 presentations with me that are geared towards that class. One to compare options like MI or compare FHA to VA to conventional. I'll have another one that just simply shows some of the generic options on a single home and talk about our pre-approval process and then how we use Mortgage Coach with our clients. Because our realtors also get a copy of the link when we send it out to the clients so that they can have some more information out in the field with their client base.
That's powerful. And then I know you and I talked about how much you like the Todd Duncan Tuesday call. If and some of the takeaways from that call, if you could just put some color around your takeaways from it and some things that you thought of after that interview I did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, the biggest connection for me with Todd's call was really that I'm already story selling. We just didn't call it that. I called it relational selling is how I learned it. And it's really just about connecting with that borrower. If you can really pinpoint that borrower and what's important to them early on in your conversation, in your meeting, and then bring that back with experiences of other clients, of yourself, and to really build the practical story for these folks in what this home's going to look like, they're going to see themselves in there, what they're going to do, and what their options are. You tie that back in with the Mortgage Coach presentation and being able to literally show them those options, show them the 5, 7, 10-year breakouts. You can make a case for a lot of different things and why the option that Uncle Ed said was the best probably isn't.
Yeah, right. Well, this quote from Todd during his call, high trust storytelling with Mortgage Coach is the greatest disruptive strategy you can unleash in your market. That bottom part is actually some scripting, where Todd actually says, hey, this is how you approach it. You say, hey, most lenders don't. This is how I'm different, and this is a visual picture of most lenders provide a fee worksheet and don't provide graphs and charts. This is how I'm different. Every time I help one of your families, they're going to get a total cost analysis. You're going to be in the loop. Your family's going to make a better decision. So Paul,
that's a quote that I use with clients all the time. And I differentiate ourselves as we're not Walmart Mortgage, but here's why we're worth it.
I love that.
And it will be built for my value.
Makes sense. Well, let's pretty quickly, 1 to 2 minutes, let's go through 3 scenarios that you created. So folks, just to stay with us, we've explained high level what Paul's doing, how he's doing it. We're going to go through 3 specific total cost analysis that are among the most common conversations that he's had. And then we're going to wrap up the call with going through the workflow to create these total cost analysis experiences. So Paul, what are we looking at here?
This one here is a comparison between conventional and FHA. It's something we see, I see it quite often. So many times the first-time homebuyer comes in and says, I got to have an FHA loan. So we compare those all the time. And a lot of times you'll find with really good credit or with really bad credit, one might make more sense. For this particular borrower, credit wasn't all that perfect, so we were able to show them that FHA is actually cheaper than conventional, and they were hung up on conventional. But we're looking at saving them $8,000 just in the first 60 months because of the difference. So when you put those real numbers in front of them, their eyes open up, and all of a sudden the program name or the rate doesn't necessarily matter as much as it used to. It's all about the actual facts and figures.
Right. Now, by the way, you made that comment, hey, we're not Walmart Mortgage. This is how we're different. What kind of feedback do you get from clients, when they're seeing these graphs and charts and and you're able to not only show them the monthly payment, but you're able to show them the difference over time and the time that's relevant to them. What kind of feedback do you hear?
The most common feedback is, wow, XYZ Mortgage didn't do that. Or when I went to my bank, they didn't do that. And that literally leads into the conversation where they might not know. But what we do here is we focus on you and your exacting situation, because everybody's situation is different. Because what matters for you doesn't matter for the guy that's going to live in the house 30 years if you're only going to be there for 4. So we want to tailor the options to what makes the most sense for your specific term in that house. And
right.
That leads into a more of a trust-building conversation. And really, that's where I kind of lock the clients in. I have that trust at that point. I don't get shopped.
Beautiful. So if the client told them their goals were 4 years, it wouldn't be 60 months. It'd be 48 months. So makes sense. So, and again, I know the goal here was to share some of your most common strategies. How often are you having this, FHA versus conventional conversation? Is this daily, weekly? Just give us a feel for how often you're having that.
It depends on the week with volume, obviously, but probably at least 3 times a week.
Okay.
Just about every first-time home buyer gets that specific strategy, unless they just don't have a conventional option for whatever reason.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Now, here's the second scenario. What are we looking at here?
This one was a little bit different. This is a comparison of MI options that would be available to somebody on a home in the $300,000 price range. So we were really trying to target a specific payment. They wanted their payments under $2,000. Well, how do we get the payments under $2,000 on a $300,000 home, which we know taxes and stuff on? We were able to walk this guy through why a higher rate might make more sense when we use LPMI. That was not the case here as far as being the absolute best option, again, based on credit and everything, but we were able to look at doing a financed single premium versus a monthly, which is a harder thing to explain to clients because they don't like MI in the first place. So we're able to visually show them the benefits of financing in that MI premium as opposed to going with a monthly MI that everybody's familiar with. And it just takes that conversation to a new level because now they've got real numbers where they can completely realize their payments are $70 a month cheaper in plain terms. And the math pretty much breaks out on here, so there's no questions about accuracy.
Love it.
The buy-in is fantastic.
And so you're really able to differentiate yourself from other lenders, and you're really able to help a client make a confident and clear decision. How often does this come up, this, call it MI analysis? Is this pretty common?
Once we get into a conventional loan, so once we've done the FHA conventional comparison, I usually do flip over to, okay, now we're doing conventional. Here's some options for you. And that just kind of launches that conversation. So every borrower that gets a conventional loan had this analysis in there at one point or another.
Got it. So this is part of your process to educate and help families make the best decision. Great. And we've got a third scenario. What are we looking at here?
This one here was a comparison of different down payments. So many people come in and say, I want to put 20% down. Why do you want to put 20% down? One of those conversations is a lot of times, your rate might actually be lower at 10% down. So we go through the whole reason with why Fannie Mae might do that. And we have a conversation about 10% down actually makes more sense because you can then reinvest this money. And we'll sometimes use the reinvestment strategy if we have a portfolio of a known appreciation rate. But we were able to show them in this situation that it's actually beneficial to them on that house to go with 10% down over 20, finance in the MI with a single premium. Their payment goes up a little bit, but they're holding on to a whole another $20,000 they can put back in their investment account. In this case, it was used to redo the master bathroom to a degree. So we found them some quote-unquote free borrowed money to throw in there as opposed to having to get it from another source where they had to liquidate investments.
Love it. So effectively being a trusted advisor, helping the client, solve their problems, which was, invest money to improve the home, and he came up with a mortgage that, they like the monthly payment too. So makes sense. And again, folks, to be able to show this graphically helps the family make a better decision, helps you be a more effective, trusted advisor, and it keeps the realtor in the loop. So by the way, if you could speak to that real quick, you mentioned that you often CC the realtors. What kind of feedback do you get from your realtor partners on the fact that you're driving this experience?
The realtors absolutely love it because all of a sudden when they're out at a house with a borrower, they love the fact that I can pull this thing up in front of both of them, have a conversation about, okay, now we're going to get ready to write the contract. What were you thinking of offering? What are you asking for in closing costs? Well, here we go. We had this whole thing built. So before they ever put a pen on paper to accept or write an offer, they now know the numbers from our conversation. Albeit rates are going to change, things are going to tweak a little bit here or there, but they've got a whole lot more certainty than they do with just about anybody else in the marketplace because I've given them the numbers on the offer they're making.
Got it.
And so I can do that from just about anywhere.
And you get good feedback from your realtor partners that they appreciate this and they like this.
They absolutely love it. I would say that it's actually, especially with agents that I'm just starting to work with, it's one of the things that really does help secure the relationship because it shows that higher level of service. If I take this much time with you on the pre-app, what's it going to look like when we're in contract and we're actually getting ready to close the loan? What's that service level going to look like? It's probably going to be the same. And that's been a consistent theme throughout so far.
Beautiful. So everybody listen to this call. I mean, Mortgage Coach is important and powerful with the borrower, but it's equally and sometimes even more powerful with the agent. I hear all the time that there was either an agent where it helped go from being a secondary referral partner to a primary because they like this. I've heard from agents where they get extra referrals because they want you to do the rent versus own, or they want you to not only provide the mortgage options but create urgency with the home buyer because of the way that you're able to use graphs and charts. So we're not covering the rent versus own in this conversation, and there's also call it the why buy now analysis. But it really helps you take what your product is, rates and fees, and present this to families in a way that's better, and do it in a way that's going to get you more referrals from realtors. So Paul, before we get into workflow, anything else you want to add?
Really just that you kind of build on the realtor piece. I think it's been a huge part of the growth that I've seen over the last 2 years. It's been able to build that trusted advisory role with both clients and agents, which has increased dramatically the amount of past client referrals that I see coming in. So it's been since I've really embedded it in my workflow over the last 5 years, it's really been a huge part of the growth that I've seen.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks for taking time to do this. Let's get into workflow now. I'm going to share the screen. By the way, folks, this is going to be live product demo. So one of your own is going to share his screen and walk you through how to create a Mortgage Coach report in your product. So Paul, you should see that. I'll tell you when I can see your screen. And
all right,
Paul, let's try to keep this part of the call as close to 5 minutes as we can. Everybody on this call, we do training for Prime all the time. You have trainers that are always doing Mortgage Coach reports, and we have live events going every day of the week. So anything that you don't catch here towards the end of the call, I'll remind you how to get more training on this. All right, Paul. So let's go through your workflow. We've seen how to create an amazing experience for the borrower that's of value to the realtor. Now let's see how to do that through your workflow with PrimePath.
Yeah, what we've got is a purchase transaction here that we're just getting ready to quote out, and we're going to be in a little bit of competition on, we think. So we're going to get ready to build our Mortgage Coach and start by just building out a brief template here.
Hey, Paul, so while you're doing this, I know you've created a lot of total cost analysis, standalone, and edge. While it's doing this right now, how much time is it saving you doing it through Optimal Blue and PrimePath since you started this process?
It's saving me a good minute, maybe a little bit more, 90 seconds or so, on each presentation that I do since I started using OB to blow that first transaction in there. Instead of duplicating my data entry, it's allowing me to just flow right through that.
All right. So all you folks that have been doing it in Edge only, a minute for every total cost analysis, if not more. So keep it rolling.
And we're going to show a couple different options here for this particular gentleman. He's interested in both a conventional option as well as a VA loan option. So I always want to check my pricing a little in that. And then I'll also check my pricing on any other programs, and I just make note of that pricing. I don't actually import more than one program when I do this, and I'll kind of explain that as I get back into Mortgage Coach. But I always want to make note of where I'm at price-wise. All right. We'll load this here in the Mortgage Coach. Give it a second to load. And I'll always go here to the search function and find that new presentation that I just loaded in. Mr. Homeowner that we started with today. I kind of blew through that, but I use that copy function a lot as well. If I'm copying something from somebody I've already done a loan for in the past, I have some recurring investors, and that allows me to build the situations again very quickly. sure we purchased in a new home, and then I blow right through to the product. And I make it a little bit more user-friendly.
So make note, we're changing the investor name to something that is consumer clear.
And then we've already got our product built in there. I'd like to convert to percentage just so it makes it easier for me to change it downstream if I need to. And then I pull in my templates for the loan. I double click there. Those are in. And then I just build out my tax and insurance base real quick. And then what I really like to do when I go to that VA scenario, whatever that next scenario is just be able to copy everything that I've already entered. So for us, there's very little that changes as we go loan type to loan type. So I'll copy in that first conventional that we did. And this one's now going to be a VA with 10% down. And the one thing I really need to update there is our first time usage fee. And then just change my appraisal cost. And we'll add one more product.
So Paul, how long do you think it takes you to create, your typical total cost analysis, starting from Optimal Blue, updating these templates, how much time do you think you're investing per family?
No more than 5 minutes, I would say, in most cases, sometimes even a little bit less. If it's a very complex scenario and I'm building out an adjustable, it might be a little bit longer than that to get the adjustable piece in correctly, maybe 6 minutes, but certainly a lot faster than I can create 4 or 5 different estimated cash in our old software.
Yeah, right.
Rather than going to that
Hey, real
archaic
quick,
route, yeah.
hey, go back to the analysis page real quick. I do want to highlight, folks, there's a button there called Copy Analysis. So that, let's just say you created an MI analysis or something that took you 5 or 10 minutes. You could, leverage that as a template and recreate all that in Edge just by using that copy feature. So it's a great shortcut. If anybody's on this call and you've never used that feature, it's a big time savings. Anyways, continue, Paul.
Well, one of the real important parts for me about this analysis is probably a core of my sales strategy as well. I really want to know how long the client plans on being in the house, because the way that we approach this conversation, let alone the numbers, has a lot to do with if they're going to be in the military and they're here for 4 years and they know they're going to the next duty station, or are you going to be in that house for 30 years and pay the thing off? So that's really a deep conversation you've got to get into with your borrower to talk about what the situation is. And I will definitely bracket that situation with our months from the short and long-term analysis. The best option is, because sometimes the best option is not necessarily the lowest rate, depending on what kind of situation you've got going on. And this really helps illustrate that and make it clear for a buyer. Here we go. I always make sure I check the notify me. I really want to be able to know. I love getting the mobile notification when my report's being viewed. That way I can check in on the client. And I can also hop in on my phone and make a tweak if they've asked me for something. But I know that it's there, so I always make sure to check that view notifications. And then I do want to preview the report before I send it out, before I generate that link, just to make sure I didn't make any mistakes. But that's simple. 5 minutes in, and we've got a killer sales presentation.
I love it, man. So not only a great presentation for the borrower, but also a competitive advantage for the realtor, all within 5 minutes. Remember, everybody, start this in Prime Pass, start this in Optimal Blue. For all you mortgage coach users that you're doing this, but you're starting in an Edge, it's going to save you time. It's going to make it more accurate. It's going to make it more valuable. So this is the workflow that you want to drive. And for every manager that's listening to this call, the goal is to get your loan officers to create 2 total cost analysis every day, 10 per week. That is the number that we want to drive. So the quicker you could do that, the better. Anything before we jump into some other thoughts, Paul, that you want to cover here as we're going through workflow?
From a workflow standpoint, I just caught a mistake. I knew I put the wrong VA funding fee in for a first use with 10% down, so I was really quickly able to go back and correct that. One of the things I use this for a lot as well is to do a live presentation. I really like to get the borrower on the phone when I send this out, so I can walk them through this and have that live conversation, immediately adjusting my terms around our conversation with how long they plan on being in that house, connecting them back to that presentation, really building that deeper connection, that trust factor.
Yeah, well, hey, show us how to do that real quick. I want to make sure everybody knows how to drive the live experience. And I do want to emphasize that live experience can be driven on the mobile app. But why don't you go ahead and show how you're doing it on the desktop real quick?
Yeah, I can certainly do that. Here we'll be comparing a couple of different options, with the cheapest payment here obviously being the 5% down conventional, just because I didn't put any MI in there yet. I'm sorry, the most expensive payment being the conventional. I'm reading it backwards. But we can really truly illustrate the savings on a month-to-month basis. Love to be able to draw their attention to the fact that the VA is going to save them $193 over the most expensive option. Once we kind of get figured in, this guy is very key on payment. That's what he really cares about most. I like to be able to have my actual mortgage coach up on another screen, go back here to my report selection, and be able to eliminate, as we're conversing, eliminate those options so that we can really start drilling down or changing those options and continue to have that conversation. Talking about where he's at over that first 10-year period, and then being able to screen over, being able to go in and break down the actual payment, what we're using as an estimate for homeowners insurance at this point, the fact that we've actually pulled real taxes for this property that we're now talking about. So we have a real live scenario here, and the borrower can really get their head around what they're expecting to spend. And this lets me drive it so that if they pull it up on their mobile device, which again I think about 70% of people do pull this up on some kind of mobile device, at least in my world, it actually drives the screens. So I'm forcing them to look where I want them to look, not all over the presentation, kind of guiding their own way. It's letting me drive that bus and help them make the decision.
Got it. So yeah, I want to draw attention that this is a live interactive experience. If you could go back to Edge, I want to make sure everybody saw where you went into Edge Live. Go to presentation, on the preview report button. Go to preview report. We want to show where to use Edge Live.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So generate link. We go to generate link. Yeah, no
Sorry,
problem.
I hit the wrong button there. Hit generate link.
Yeah, generate link, and there is Edge Live. Next to add an audio. But I want to emphasize, folks, that is a feature to use on your mobile device. There are other trainings to teach you how to do that, but having that interactive experience where you're updating it live. You saw how Paul took it from 3 programs to 1 program. You can change rates. It's a live interactive experience. So, Paul, this has been fantastic. Anything else you want to cover before we wrap it up?
The one thing that I changed a couple of years into using this is I started to take this link and I got rid of all the gobbledygook, or whatever the better word for that would be, when I send it to my borrower. I just call it loan options or mortgage options. So now they know exactly where they're going, not some strange URL, but I've got them going to my mortgage options link. And that really is embedded in my verbiage with my templated emails that go out with that link.
Yeah, no, that's good leadership. And just a reminder to be intentional, whether you're texting this to a family, whether you're putting it in an email, some of the best practices or mentioning the person's name in the subject line, call it, the Smith family total cost analysis, and, click here for your, total cost analysis or your home loan report, whatever the term is. You're at the end of the day, you're having a great conversation on the front end, and then you're bringing it. So good. I mean, this has been a great overview of workflow. Let me continue this forward.
All right.
So folks, 5 minute ish, and we created a great mortgage coach total cost analysis. I did want to shine a light on the fact that there's a copy feature at the analysis screen. So like, let's say you had a scenario that you took 5 minutes to create, 3 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it took you. Now you can use the copy feature and recreate that whole scenario and just update loan amounts, interest amounts, super simple way. And that copy feature is in a couple different places. It's at the front end when you do the search, and it's also at the analysis screen. Paul, do you use that shortcut very often?
I do actually use both of them, depending on where I'm at in the workflow. I typically will launch that once we've decided, hey, are we doing FHA or VA? Okay, now we need to decide that we've done conventional. Here's the new conventional LPMI link, and that way they have access to both links to back their decision for the whole process.
Love it.
And I use that copy feature to launch that real quick.
Love it. So folks, let's kind of go into wrap up mode here. So there's 3 mortgage coach apps. There's the total cost analysis app. There's our Rate Watch app. Paul, do you use Rate Watch?
I do. I use Rate Watch. It's always up on my desktop just to kind of pay attention to what the markets are doing. And then I'll take a lot of screenshots either from the desktop or from the mobile phone when I'm starting to get questions about why the rate went up or why the rates changed or didn't change from pre-app to lock. It's a real useful tool that allows me to kind of talk about market change and what that does to rate.
Great. Awesome app. And then, of course, we have My Nest coming to market soon. You guys can start playing with that. We're working on how we're going to bring that and when we're going to bring that to market with you. But stay tuned for My Nest. You can download it and start playing with it now. But we'll get into that in future calls. I do want to remind people every single Thursday at 11 o'clock Pacific, we're doing mobile training. We're teaching you how to share the total cost analysis with realtors and families. We show you how to use the live feature that we talked about. We show you how to add a video to all of your total cost analysis from the mobile phone. Just about everything that you could do with Mortgage Coach Mobile, we cover. And, at Prime, you guys are super lucky. You've got an amazing training organization that do a lot of Mortgage Coach trainings. And we do a lot of very specific prime lending training, but we also have public training. So I want to remind everybody every single Tuesday at 9 o'clock, I am interviewing someone amazing. I'm going to interview Todd Duncan again next week. And I'm always interviewing a top producer, someone very special. I do want to shine a light on the Mortgage Coach Scripts call. This was a call that was all about the scripts, how you talk about Mortgage Coach with the realtor. What you say to the borrower before you forward the link. It was just all about the sales scripting before you show the total cost analysis, and then how to script and explain the total cost analysis to have more value. So if you missed that training, I do recommend you check it out. We'll put a link to that in the description where you're watching this video. Also want to remind you, all of our calls are recorded and they're in our YouTube channel. So if you have not subscribed, I recommend you do so you get an alert when we update it. And I recommend that you look for other training calls. So hopefully this has been valuable. Our goal is that every time you are serving a family, you're helping them with a mortgage, you're providing them with graphs and charts, as Todd Duncan would call it, high trust story selling. How would you describe what you said relationship selling. Paul, how would you describe how you're using Mortgage Coach to tell stories and explain strategies?
I would say for me, Mortgage Coach is primarily a trust building tool. It takes one of my hallmarks, right? We're all salespeople. I don't want to be that sales guy. I want to be your advisor. And that's the tool that really helps me become your trusted advisor through this process. And even years down the road, getting calls back to help clients with those kind of questions and that experience. It takes me from that one-time sales guy in this internet age and allows me to be the advisor that so many of the online internet and so many of our competitors in general can't be in the eyes of that client. That's the value that Mortgage Coach has given me.
Right on. Well, it's great to have you. Thank you for taking time to share how you use Mortgage Coach, why you use Mortgage Coach. Paul, thank you for the leadership in your region. Look forward to interviewing you on a public Mortgage Coach call coming up in a few weeks. And folks, I hope this was valuable for you. Make sure you use Mortgage Coach with every family that you serve, and make sure you're talking to your realtors and you're explaining how you're delivering unique value. Take care, everybody.